which means to think. A show about authors, creators, and influencers who share narratives about their culture and identity. Welcome to the show. I'm sitting here with Ben Lee, a publisher, writer, and illustrator of Big Head Productions, a company formed specifically to publish comics. Am I right?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There are a lot of questions to ask you.
All right.
There's just so much to wonder about in the world of a comic author. Mm-hmm. It's to my understanding that breaking into the comic industry is quite the challenge. So where did you get the courage to not only write your own comics, but also illustrate and publish them yourself?
Oh, well, excuse me. That is...
a heavy question?
Yeah. And I don't know if a long story, but wanting to do comic books is something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. I mean, just telling stories and just having that impact on other people. But, I'm sure with the majority of people, you have the dreams as a kid, but the life just takes you on a different direction. Mm-hmm. So I fell into marketing and advertising, but just the path that career took, I became very, very unhappy, for borderline depression.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm studying.
Yeah, but the desire to make comic books never faded, and like you said, breaking into the industry is an incredibly hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. But going to conventions, and attending panels from publishers about how to break into the industry, one takeaway I always came away with: you don't need anyone's permission to make comics, because there's just in our technology age, there's just so many avenues, online, mm-hmm. what have you, go to Kinko's and get zines made up and just pass them out.
Yeah.
So, but in addition to that, just thinking about where I was from a career standpoint, I remember two business articles that I read. One talked about a high-level executive, just if you can imagine a solid career, she had it, but mm-hmm. she wasn't happy. So the whole idea of this article was like, how you're ready to leave your job. And the test was basically write your resignation letter, and depending on how you feel after you've written it, that's how you know. Mm-hmm. So I wrote it. I felt a huge weight off my shoulders.
Wow.
And so I sent it. Mm-hmm. But before that, another article I had read was talking about how to be ready to be a full-time artist. Mm-hmm. And although I wasn't doing a lot of contract work for artwork at the time, I do a lot of freelance, and but so there was a lot of crossover. So this guy started talking about make sure you have a cash reserve for several months of cost of living. So I'm like, all right, check. Make sure you're working on jobs. Check. Jobs are coming in. Check. And then invoices are out. And so I took that knowledge and looked at my financial situation, and I'm like, okay.
You can do it.
And then knowing I was not happy where I was at with my job, I was like, okay. At the time, 38, single, I'm like, if I'm going to chase the dream, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's probably my number one motivator, is just finding something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, because I remember I was having lunch with a friend of mine, whom I hadn't seen in forever, but he's like, so, how's it going?
Yeah.
How's it going? I'm like, well, I'm constantly stressed. It is an incredible struggle, but I'm happy.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's the big picture here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can you say is different about Big Head Productions? What should people expect?
As opposed to the rest of the industry? Or...
Yes.
In rubber. Okay. Well, I would offer that Big Head Productions definitely falls into a small press, independent publisher silo, mm-hmm. And a lot of players in that space, they heavily resort to gimmicks mm-hmm. for their books. unfortunately revolves around a lot of TNA, and that more often than not, comes at the sacrifice of the story.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in books down the line coming from Big Head Productions won't have some kind of hook or gimmick, but that it'll be in reverse to service the story. And but I definitely want to put stories first. I mean, I know that might sound a cliche, but just looking at like that small press space, it's just, I definitely think creating stories first is definitely in the minority, and I'm not faulting other players in the market, because, I mean, whatever their motivations or goals are, that's
this is just your work ethic.
Yeah, basically. And so because and the first book out of Big Hit Productions, I think, is a great example, Lost in the Middle, and it was inspired by a moment of racism in my own life, but that's the only similarity from there. From there, just the response the protagonist has to that situation starts going on a journey of self-discovery and healing. So it just, granted, not necessarily a mass market appeal, if you will.
Yeah.
But I was very driven to just tell.
So are they kind of stories about yourself?
Well, there's always that old adage, write what you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think anything that I produce from my own ideas, to some degree or another, is going to be pulled from whatever experiences I have to see if I could spin it into an engaging story. But my hope definitely is that Big Head Productions will grow to a place to where, right now, it's been a channel to get my own work into the marketplace. But just given the difficulty to break in, my hope is that this will grow to where I can give other aspiring creatives and creators a channel to get their work out there and hopefully make an income doing it.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Do you mind expanding on that racism experience that you had?
As far as that moment.
How would I better word that?
Oh, I think that's perfect. Just how the whole that moment I spoke of basically was at the last job that I was terribly unhappy at and quit. But the executive who had hired me, very much a sort of used car salesman, good old boy mentality. And I just remember one time in the office, I don't know where I was walking to in the space, but from behind me I hear him go, "Hey, Ben!" I turn around, there he is, and he's just like, out of the blue, he has this shit-eating grin on his face, and he's like, "So, parents ever owned a dry cleaners?"
Oh my gosh.
And
oh my god.
in and of itself, I don't want to trivialize racism, if you will, but I mean, typically not a huge egregious offense, but still, I mean, I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But you see the expression this guy's had, and he was just ignorant, for lack of a better way to put it, so I
just
shined
a little
it on.
Too comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
So, but in the comic book, the protagonist takes a very more violent approach.
Oh, wow.
So, but then he gets landed into quarter-pointed therapy, and then that's where the self-discovery and healing begins to happen.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, because I noticed when I was kind of doing like my stalkerish research on you, I noticed how you focus a lot on more like human stories.
Yeah.
And I noticed that was kind of like your work ethic, and that was something to be appreciated for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So this may be a common question, but what inspired your very first story? Like at which point were you just like, this would be a really freaking cool comic book? Like, is there a specific thing that inspired you, or
it inspired me in what regard?
In how you created your first book, I guess.
Oh, you like even like way back when, just
gave you that spark.
Well, there's there was one idea in the I don't know, in the idea box, if you will, and it was in college, and I was just lying in bed with my sketchbook, just noodling ideas. But for some reason, I started thinking about this comic book as a kid. It was written by Mark Waid and drawn by Stuart. I'm gonna butcher his last name, Inman. If any of your listeners are comic book fans, hopefully those names will resonate. But the book was called Shock Rockets, and it focused on Hispanic protagonists, just sort of a coming of age story, and sort of like a Thunderbird super team of like superhero jet fighters, and how this guy just comes up and falls into this world and becomes a hero. And great art, great story, loved it. But for some reason, as I was just drawing random things in my bed this night, all of a sudden I was like, where are my Asian superheroes at? I mean, not to get too militant about it, but so I just was like, well, what kind of narrative can I make for just sort of in a similar path of you have this everyday person be thrown into this extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
So I all this doodling became a comic book that I called Alan Lee Saves the World.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was just sort of a non sequitur, offbeat science fiction comedy kind of thing. But I really wanted to create an Asian hero.
Yeah.
So, like way back in the day, maybe like 2003, 2004, I wrote it, drew it, and then very much to, conventions talking about you don't need anyone's permission to make comic books. I sort of bogarted the company Xerox machine that I was working at, and I was just like, I'm going to publish some zines. And, but I do want to go back to it and just sort of look at what I wrote and maybe retool it and actually put out a quality product.
Yeah. What was his superhero or superpower?
An alien was sort of escaping persecution from his home planet, crashes on Earth, and this was right after Alan gets bullied at school.
Okay.
So
There's
he's
always a bully,
right. It's the sort of coming of age. You gotta have that antagonist.
Yeah.
So Alan's all like frustrated, downtrodden, beaten down. Then all of a sudden, the alien crash lands, and just the way the alien escaped persecution is just more of became just the spiritual energy embodiment, and he infused himself with Alan.
Okay.
So, now as far as the science of it, it doesn't make any sense because to answer your question from a superpower standpoint, basically, this alien to whom I call Bob.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect alien name.
Because I think there's a line in the comic book. It's like, "What's your name?" And the alien is like, "Babaluska Katral." It's like, can I just call you Bob? But just as Bob is inside Alan, he can just manipulate everything. So be it typical tropes of super strength, things of that nature, but then also manipulate things around Alan in the environment.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. It's a neat story.
Thank you.
Yeah. How has your cultural background affected or influenced any of your work, if it has? Have you had to overcome any kind of stereotypes at all as an author, or?
Not that I'm aware of. Stereotypes in life, definitely, but
Right.
as I pursue this career to tell stories, I not that I've recognized. As far as impacted like the work that I want to do, unfortunately, I'm being a first generation Korean American for my family. I as familiar with my heritage as I would like.
Right.
Because like I even remember one time back in college, I was crushing on a Japanese girl, beautiful woman, and I remember telling my brother about it. But that Christmas we flew out to see family in California, and my brother just threw it out there. Ben's in love with a Japanese girl. Now, being Korean, unbeknownst to me at the time, I had no idea about Japan's invasion of Korea, the occupation. All the grown-ups were like, what? I'm like, what? What? She's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I got a crash course in history. The whole, don't you know what they did to our people? I'm like, clearly not.
Yeah.
But, just going off of how little I know of my heritage and just sort of that historical background, I do want to be more informed and hopefully have that inform the work that I do. Because one thing I've been noodling with right now was how can I learn more about my culture. And then, I don't know if Koreans specifically, but maybe I'd hate to blanket Asians as a whole, but I want to say there's sort of an inclination to just be fascinated by the aesthetics of things and then maybe not look at the context of it.
Yeah.
So taking that in mind, I'm just historical dress, be it Korean, Japanese, Chinese, just that formal historical dress, I am completely enamored with. So I recently started looking at what can I do with that aesthetic, and going through that process, I came across I guess a Korean folklore of a nine-tailed fox, and just how this creature is a very villainous spirit.
Oh wow!
So I'm wondering how can I shape this into
a story.
Yeah. So it's very much in the early stages.
Yeah.
But so I guess to answer your question is my cultural background hasn't necessarily influenced my work, but I'm hoping my work can help influence me as far as my cultural background.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And it's all, and your comics, you're talking, the stories are all about an Asian person sharing a message, whether it doesn't have to be that your culture influenced it, but the point is you're allowing a different story, a new hero or a new main character that's not the norm, basically.
Oh no, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, because I think just until recently in the comic marketplace, you see more racial and gender diversity.
Definitely.
And it's a little, and it's surprising because not too long ago, whatever degree of executive for Marvel Comics, I guess Marvel was experiencing a slump in sales, and this executive was all like, it's because of where you were having female characters and too much racial diversity. And I'm like, pardon my language, but I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, because you look at how they're treating the characters, it's just like, why don't you work on the story? I mean, people want diversity, not just to your point, that's that same trope of a superhero stereotype. It's
that was the word I was looking for. What is it?
So, I mean, and it's definitely, I would argue just recently, so you see more of that gender and racial diversity in comic books. So I just hope I can add to that.
Yeah, definitely. And so you don't do a lot of superhero comics, do you? Are they mostly like human stories?
Yeah, I mean, I like great. Lost in the Middle is the first title out the gate, as I said, and I do have a litany of other titles planned, but I would definitely say not a lot of them are like superhero based.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, if there's a fantastical element to it, it's just going to be more science fiction fantasy.
Gotcha. For the human stories, what does that consist of? when you're talking about human stories? Like, what are the different subjects that these comics talk about? Like are they just different like experiences in life? And then
I would say so. I mean, like, regardless of whatever world I drop the protagonist in, I definitely I don't know about anything specific per se, but I would definitely say I mean, granted, like all those other titles that I mentioned, they're just ideas percolating. There's no physical scripts yet, but I would say the desire is, regardless of the world, the protagonist will have a challenge, a personal challenge to them to overcome as they're experiencing whatever. So hopefully that will be the driving force to create an engaging narrative.
Yeah, and I think that'd be perfect for readers. They can relate to it because it can be like a real life experience, and then there's also this, it's a comic twist. It'll be funny and it'll be enjoyable. So I think that'll really resonate with a lot of people.
Thank you. I hope so.
I am quite sure. In terms of Big Head Productions, so what's the goal? Like, what are the future? Like, what kind of future growth are you looking into? Or, aspiring.
Right now, is focused. I mean, not to be self-indulgent, but focusing on myself to have enough growth to where I can stop freelancing graphic design and just concentrate 100% on creating stories. But I like money, and the bills got to get paid.
Of course.
But I would love to see the growth happen to where I can transition fully to making stories and art full time, and then from there, I'd love Big Head Productions to grow, as I mentioned earlier, to where I can give other people, other aspiring creators, a channel to get their work out there.
Right.
Then beyond that, I would love enough growth to happen coming from a marketing and advertising background. A lot of my close friends also share that career history.
Right.
We all share the same frustrations from agency life and how...
You're worrying me now.
Oh, sorry. But we can talk after it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, and maybe not even limited to agency life, but just corporate life as a whole. You'd see a lot of common practices where it's like, why are you doing that? It makes so much more sense to go the other way. Like, for instance, it's hard to fault executives for this mindset, but they're focused on the customer and the bottom line, and often that comes that weight drops onto the support staff.
Right.
So, but I think if you focused on your people, that'll take care of your customers and your bottom line. I mean, if you're just dropping all of this stress and all of these fires onto your support staff, that's just going to create a lot of discontent. Right. I mean, definitely find a balance, but make your people a priority. So, going back to your question, where I see Big Head Productions down the line, I'd love it if this idea grows to the point where I can bring in not just friends, but all talented people in our city to have that environment for work and career that focuses on them and just create fantastic things, and God willing, that'll sort the bottom line.
Yeah. So would you say that you're learning a lot? Like, you're still learning a lot about yourself through the writing? And
oh, definitely.
It's a personality discovery kind of journey.
Yeah, because like with Lost in the Middle, I'm writing the third and final issue now, and I'm not entirely sure how to end it. And just knowing that sparked a moment for my own life, like this whole story, it's just like, if this was me, how do I see what kind of resolution would I want to see happen? And just having that dialogue with the work and myself, I mean, I definitely think I've gone on my own little journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what it's all about. Even, with no matter how old you are, wherever you are in life, I think you're always learning something.
Oh yeah,
new
you
about
definitely.
yourself.
You never stop learning.
Yeah, I mean, you figured out you hated.
Yeah.
The marketing agency job, so you found something new. You found your passion, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, have you always been able to draw? Or illustrate?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a lame joke, but I think I was born with a pen in my hand.
Wow. I have no artistic ability, so...
No, there's ability. I mean, maybe not a...
I can trace.
Yeah?
I'm
See?
definitely a tracer.
See? You can come ink some books for me. There you go.
I don't know if you want to trust me. Well, Ben, this has been an amazing interview. It was a lot of fun.
Definitely.
I really enjoyed it.
You and me both.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people will enjoy this interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.